Okay, let's do it. I am going to fade to black right now and bring us in. In 5, 4, 3.
Yummy like a gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for September 8th, 2023 for the next hour or so. Let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today is a major Nintendo franchise finally making a comeback after almost 20 years. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game Mess Mornings. It's Timur Hussein, everybody. Tam, how are you doing?
I am okay. I am very okay,
Very okay.
Very okay.
I can accept that. What do we got to do to make it better?
I don't know, man. I don't know if we can get to better today. I think this is just a very okay day. And sometimes,
it's okay.
You have to accept that a very okay is good enough.
Yeah, at a certain point in life, you got to take those as dubs. You got to say that is a win. It could be worse.
Yeah. It is Friday. It's DREGSDAY. So it does mean that things will improve over time. But, for now, it's just very okay. I'll have my tea over the course of the next hour, and then it will improve to quite good.
Tam, if I wanted to still be have a starter tea for a boy from the Midwest, do you have recommendations? What'd you grow up on?
I grew up on very highly caffeinated British / Pakistani
that's scary.
tea. So for me, I wish you were here or something. I could make you a chai, like a nice South Asian chai. It's got
next time we get together, let's make it happen. That'd be great.
Little bit of spice to it. It's got cardamom. It's got a little bit of aniseed. It's cinnamon. It's really nice, and ginger. It's really good. But if we're talking if you want actual kind of caffeinated tea, I would recommend probably Yorkshire tea, which you'll probably have to import to get it here. A little splash of milk, you'll be good. If you're talking about non British style tea, milk tea, I would recommend starting with a mint tea or a jasmine tea, I think.
Okay.
Twinings is pretty good.
That's one I can reliably get, right? Twinings.
Yeah, you can get Twinings very easily.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Because I had the espresso this morning, and people notice it. I'll be jittery on this show. There's no way around it, everybody. We just got to deal with it. But I'm like, I should maybe throw some tea in the rotation. Sounds like an alternative that would be very good for me.
Tea's for me, it's very relaxing.
Right.
I don't use it for caffeine. My caffeine tolerance is just crazy now. Because I used to drink tea 3 cups a day minimum, 2 tea bags per cup.
Oh, okay.
So I was blasting my body to the point where it had a full breakdown. And there was a couple of years ago, I developed an intolerance to caffeine. So every time I drink it, I would feel awful, genuinely sick. So I'd weaned myself off of caffeine and then came back slowly. And those were British teas as well, so it was intense.
Yes, the real deal stuff. Sam, I gotta say I'm starting to come back to life personally. My brain, my body, everything goes into hibernation in the summer when it's hot. And then fall is basically here. It's getting into the 60s finally, where I'm at in Cleveland. And then football's back, and the Lions kicked off the season. I'm a Lions fan, and they played very well last night. It's oh man, it's very cool for that. That's weird.
Wonderful.
Yes, it's very strange because they've been bad my entire life. They've never really had a good season. They've had a couple here and there, flukes, and so they beat the Super Bowl champions from last year in their city. So it's people are getting their hopes up in a way that I think is very dangerous for a team like the Detroit Lions, because I think they tend to find a way to always beef it. But so far, this team's been fun.
I'm a basketball guy. My team is the Warriors, so I got nothing right now.
Right, but you got that good stretch, and that team's still fun to watch.
Oh yeah, they rule. It's going to be interesting to see because we didn't get into the finals last season, but we'll see what happens this season.
I think they're gonna,
I think they're very hungry. We got Chris Paul now. We got rid of my boy Jordan Poole, which made me sad. But
and Jan's boy Draymond Green, that's all he needs.
Draymond is there. He's ready. He's a scientist.
Yeah. So, but mostly I'm just like, oh, okay, fall's here. If that means just fall's here, I can start coming back to life and having a personality again. I'm feeling good about that. It's I don't have to be on autopilot, so I'm looking forward to it. The shows will get spicy, everybody. Look forward to that as well. All right. Before we get into this mess, let's explain what we do here on this show. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you were watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with the return of a classic Nintendo series might be being teased for an upcoming Nintendo Direct. This comes from Tom Ivan at VGC. And of course, that's Tom the Machine Ivan. An upcoming Nintendo Direct could feature news on the return of a classic Nintendo series. It's been suggested that F-Zero news may be being teased by Twitter user Pyoro, who has a strong recent track record when it comes to Nintendo leaks, including outing Super Mario Bros. Wonder ahead of its official announcement. How do you feel about these leaker names, Tam?
Leaker names are terrible. We've been here, man.
Nope.
We have been here. Like, I hope it's true, but I refuse to believe it at this point.
I don't blame you. If it's like, real, it's F-Zero GX coming back, right? It's a GameCube port, right?
Remake. Again, I'm not trying to be cynical. I love F-Zero. I want F-Zero.
Oh.
I just do not see a market case for it.
Yeah.
The best I can get is people know the Captain Falcon from Smash.
Yes.
That's not enough, man. That is not enough. I feel like it's been gone so long that people have a very baseline understanding of what it is when it appears. The broader people, they'll look at it and go, racing game. And I just don't think racing games hit as hard as they used to.
Oh, I think you're right.
You have a couple of franchises will make it work. Forza, Gran Turismo, and Mario Kart is the other exception. I mean, like, Ubisoft has the Crew, which it trying to...
And everyone's wild about the Crew, Tam. I know that's what you're about to say. I know
it's not popular, but like they make it work.
They do make it work
through sheer force of just incessant releases. They just never stop releasing it, and they keep coming, and eventually, and just through like saturating the market, they get some share of that market, of that genre.
You're not wrong. That's so true. That's so true of like so many things that Ubisoft does, but especially the Crew.
I would love, I hope I'm wrong. I just don't see it for F-Zero. Like, I want to see it. I hope that GX is the one that they do. I would love it.
Oh, yeah.
I'd be very excited for it. But for me right now, maybe it's because it's a defense mechanism where I don't want to be hurt again, but I'm struggling to see it happen.
So I'll say that the among the rumor mill for Nintendo stuff since like late last year, earlier this year, F-Zero GX coming back has been a popular rumor, I guess is how I'll phrase it. It's one that is it's frequently reared its head, and to the point where, you know, I've never been able to confirm it personally, but it's also not one that's been, that's easy to debunk as well. It lines up with Nintendo right now, the way that they've treated GameCube games as like, these are good to pick up, take, and move over to the Switch, and they'll do relatively well. And I think if they do it in the line of like Metroid Prime Remastered, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the reason why I think it would happen, but it's also like, what's the next step in that business case?
Exactly.
Because for Metroid Prime, there's another Metroid Prime. And also, Metroid has just had a moment with Dread. So there's a business case to be made there. F-Zero only really has Captain Falcon is in Smash, and that's about it. There's no current business case. Like, if they were doing it, and I hope they are, like I said, it would just be like a kind of like a tip of the hat or nod of the head to fans of F-Zero, which I think that we deserve something, and I hope they give it to us. F-Zero, when it comes to rumors as well, is also one of those ones where I'm not trying to like talk down the credibility of this leaker, but it's
setting that aside, I know what you're about.
It's very easy for anyone to say anything about F-Zero and get a lot of traction out of it. It's the same for Metroid Prime. It was the same. Anyone could say Metroid Prime. I heard there's a new Metroid Prime coming. and it didn't really matter if you were credible or not. You would pick up some traction. F-Zero is exactly the same.
Yep.
I'm not saying this pyro person or whatever your nonsense name is lying. I'm just saying, like, it's just one that we have to be careful of.
Yeah,
because it happens so frequently.
His leaks recently, the reason that like people would be like, oh well, I'm choosing to believe this is it was the Super Mario Brothers Wonder and Super Mario RPG remake that he was the source of those leaks that happened right before that show. So everyone's like ready to believe him, and you know this direct probably is happening next week, and they have to have something in there, and so it's like maybe that F-Zero rumor that like you said is framed like that. But I also know exactly what you mean, and we've also seen with like some of these leakers who've been very accurate in the past. It's like something changes, and then suddenly the source isn't as solid anymore. That could be happening. Pyoro this morning also tweeted a GIF of Donkey Kong from the movie like rolling into the screen. Donkey Kong is another one that we've heard repeatedly as a rumor, but that one seems less easy to pin down because that like it's been all over the place. There's a 3D Donkey Kong. No, it's a 2D Donkey Kong from the 2D Mario team. It's like, well, now we know what the 2D Mario team's working on. That's definitely not Donkey Kong, or maybe Donkey Kong's DLC in there. Who knows? So maybe this is the 3D Mario team making a Donkey Kong game. Does that make sense? Well, they're probably going to do a Donkey Kong movie after this movie was very successful, and they got Donkey Kong stuff going into Universal Studios, so maybe they want to synergize with all that stuff. It's very easy to take the circumstantial evidence, Tam, and be like, well, of course that makes sense. At the same time, like I think that would be a good and cool move for them to be like, here is a new take on Donkey Kong, separate from what Retro was doing, separate from what Rare was doing before that, and reestablishing that character. Something that they have remodeled the character recently. It's like, oh, we're going to kind of go in this direction. So I would like to see that, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think it makes sense. Again, Donkey Kong is another one that we have, people who have the inside knowledge have heard about many, many times. Like,
yes, many times.
So I've heard about a new Donkey Kong game, like you said, so many times.
And yes, so many different variations.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, things like you said change. You of all people know what that happens, where it's like the amount of times I have been told that I very quickly have learned that, hey, when someone tells you this is going to happen, like, I don't tell a lot of people because I know that, especially Nintendo, they can decide, oh, we're actually not going to do this right now. We're going to save it for 6 months. And then you look like a fool for a really long time. We know for a fact that they did that with Metroid Prime Remaster, because that was one that got like rated. They like when people went back, it's like, oh, this was like submitted in Germany in 2020 or something like that. So that's why I did not say shit about Metroid Prime, because I was like, I know what's going to happen here. And it happened. Did. Yep. Donkey Kong is another one where it has been floating around for a really long time. It does make sense for it to kind of be the next thing that Nintendo, or a thing that Nintendo does. I'm not 100% sure if it would be an internal team, especially given that the internal team, when the choice is make them make a new Donkey Kong, which could be good, could be a success, right? Or make them make a new Mario, like, which is definitely going to be a success regardless. I don't know if you put that team, like the 3D Mario team, on a Donkey Kong game. Maybe you put a 3D Mario team on Mario and Donkey Kong Squash the Beef game, or whatever. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like, there's a chance here that you still play as Mario in this Donkey Kong game. Like, I think that's a fantastic idea. Me too. Like, unite Donkey Kong and Mario again, since, like, from the early days. Like, go back to that. I think that's such a clever idea. I do too. I hope that's what they're going for. And I would love to see the Nintendo 3D team, 3D Mario team, handling that franchise or handling that character. But at the same time, I just would love a new Donkey Kong game. Like, Donkey Kong's great. A lot of love for Donkey Kong. He's the European Nintendo mascot of choice for us. Really, I didn't know that. It's like he's like shows up maybe as frequently as what, Mario? No, as in, like, it's Rare that made him, right? Well, he would, Shigeru Miyamoto made him like for the arcade game, and then and then Rare like, put his name on the map. The current Donkey Kong that everyone thinks of is definitely Rare. Yes, that's Rare, exactly. That's okay. So yes, like, definitely. He's our kind of boy. Yes. So I played shit tons of Donkey Kong Country when I was a kid. So Jim Ryan's a big fan of Donkey Kong. He's like, another European. Let's go. Yeah. Let's go.
I think that everything you said about Donkey Kong is spot on. It's something that I would like to see if they have an idea for it. If they feel like, hey, we have a really cool thing that we want to do with this, that would be cool. But you're right. I still like underneath all these rumors, I'm like, the next thing from the 3D Mario team is going to be a follow up to Super Mario Odyssey. Like they didn't do DLC for that game. Those teams usually work in such a way that, hey, we have all these extra ideas that we left on the floor. We're going to come up with a bunch of extra ideas, and the sequel here is going to build on that. We've seen them do that with Galaxy. We see how this Zelda team just do that with Tears of the Kingdom. So it's like my expectation has always been that there would be an Odyssey 2, or some variation on that follows up on that. But if there's no reason they couldn't take those ideas and change things up and have Donkey Kong in there in some way. That could be cool as well. The timing, though, because if this is from the 3D Mario team, you would expect that to be a big release for them, and something that they like. Hey, this could do 25 million copies. Is there enough time to announce this game and get it launched on the Switch before the Switch 2 comes out? That's where I'm like not sure about any of this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like the timing is a bit strange, especially with Wonder coming out, and if everything we heard about a new Switch turns out to be true, it could be. I think the Switch 2, you know what? It could kind of indicate to us that the Switch and the Switch 2 might be closer than we realize, and there's like some level of backwards compatibility and also scalability on how a game performs. Like, or they could just release 2 versions of a game. They haven't been beyond that before, especially when it's a game that they know is going to be successful. Take the Switch 1 version of this new Mario game or whatever it is and put it out, or Donkey Kong game, and then also a Switch 2 version. They did that for Breath of the Wild and the Wii U and Switch, so it's not beyond them, but it would be a bit strange.
Yeah, I guess like people in chat are giving a whole bunch of different scenarios here. It's like people, hey, there's a whole year probably between now and when the Switch 2 comes out, so that game could come out in early summer or like March or something like that. Yeah, I guess so. But it's
then
like,
again, like,
why wouldn't you save it?
No, but regardless of if you want to save it, if you're launching a new piece of hardware and you have a Mario game, that's an absolute slam dunk. Like
that's how I feel too.
Yeah, I mean, like even if it's a case of like we just put a Mario game out, they're not going to hold it. I imagine if they have a new piece of hardware out like this, like just put that thing out right now. It worked for Breath of the Wild and Nintendo Switch, so I imagine they're just like, if it's done, let's put that shit out with this new thing.
I think it would indicate also that they probably have plenty of other stuff working in the works right now that they could launch a Switch 2 console with. Even though they've just launched a Zelda, they will have a 2D Mario on the Switch and then something from the 3D Mario team. And if that goes on Switch 1, it's like, well, what's left on for the system? But this is a Nintendo that is working in a very different way. We'll talk about it here. Actually, let's get to it right here in this story. Tam, I know you talked to Tezuka, about Super Mario Brothers Wonder development. Here's like a little bit something similar to what you told me, but I'll ask you for your thoughts on this afterwards. Super Mario Brothers Wonder devs had no deadlines during the prototyping phase. This is from Jonas Maki at Game Reactor. The 2D games in the Mario series have long lagged behind the 3D releases in terms of introducing new creative elements and mechanics. However, this looks set to change with the upcoming Super Mario Bros. Wonder, which introduces a number of gameplay innovations and power-ups, not least the ability to transform into an elephant. The fact that the game appears to be more experimental may have something to do with the fact that Nintendo had no internal deadline during the game's prototyping phase. The game's producer, Takashi Tezuka, told Wired, "I wanted to prevent people from saying we won't make that deadline, so that's why we didn't do it. We can't do it." Whether Super Mario Bros. Wonder actually feels as fresh to play as it looks, we'll find out on 20th of October. So you know what? It feels pretty fresh after we played it twice. Tam, so you talked to Tezuka, and you had he told you something similar. What's the vibe you got? Like this no deadline thing during the prototyping phase. It's something he touched on with you. He talked about in this interview. Clearly, this is something that they think is unlocking some extra potential in this Mario game, right?
Yeah, so I spoke to Tezuka-san and Mori-san, who both worked on the game, and they've worked on. You look at their credit list, and you're like, God damn, they worked on like a bunch
40
of
years of Mario, and
games,
then Tezuka did Link's Awakening, one of my favorite games of all time. So important to me.
I I think maybe Mori-san also worked on a Metroid now
Yep.
and then, so they know what they're doing. Yeah, and their general thing was like, we didn't set a deadline up until we were a year out from completing it. So it was like the prototype phase, etc. Essentially, they were like, we'll figure it out. Once they have the rock solid foundation and know exactly where they're going, that's when they were like, let's set this deadline. Yeah, and I think that's definitely been. It's clear that every part of the development process and like the workflow and pipeline was designed to ensure that they were coming up with the most interesting ideas and being able to execute on them. I think the thing that everyone is latching onto is that there were no deadlines, because that's something that's very commonly discussed in video games, both people who cover it and have like a professional insider interest in it, but also people who play games. They know that deadlines can be a big issue when it comes to developing games, and it's good to see that stuff. For me, what they told us, like me and Lucy did the interview, and what I found more interesting was they had no kind of like barriers on who could submit ideas for Wonder.
Another very cool thing, yeah.
Which is a very, very cool thing. So like basically they were like, we're making a new Mario game. If you have an idea, holler at your boys. and they said like a bunch of ideas that they actually ended up using came from the sound team more than anyone else. So that's why it's like a very different kind of game. And also based on discussions I had, a lot of the development team on Wonder is very, very young. And Tezuka and Mori indicated that like the young staff were challenging a lot of the kind of taken for granted elements of Mario experiences. Namely, we talked about this, for example, we talked about this in the interviews, like there's no timer on those games, on those levels anymore. Like, and that was something one of the younger, a couple of the younger team came up and was like, do we need a timer on this? Why is this a thing? And they like reassessed it, and it turned out they didn't need a timer on it, which makes perfect sense, because when we were playing it, we didn't want to run forward. We wanted to goof around and explore and do stuff, you know? And it made perfect sense. The idea of a game where you're collecting this item that does something different each time, or like does something different depending on the stage, inspires wonder. And if it's doing that, the last thing you want is people just legging it forward and not really taking the time to have fun with it. So yeah, it seems like the lack of a deadline is just one of many things that Nintendo did to create or at least they present as creating a very comfortable, very open, very kind of idea and new blood driven development and ideation environment. And based on what we've played, which is admittedly a extremely limited slice, a very small slice, it seems to have some magic that Mario hasn't had before, which is very exciting. I mean, again, we could be getting debated pretty hard because it could be a limited slice, but I am extremely interested in seeing what else is in that game.
Yeah, I came home and my kids wanted to play New Super Mario Brothers U Deluxe. Damn, and I when I was playing that, I'm like, man, this is actually kind of rough for me to go back to after playing Wonder. Just a lot. It just feels static and stayed and just kind of like it just there's something musty about it where it's like, God, it doesn't look alive. It doesn't. Sure, it plays like a Mario game, but it's the creativity just isn't there compared to Wonder.
I talked to Jan about this we all talked about it once we played, but like this is a game, these are changes, and this is a different tack that it needed to take, primarily because they have technology now that can support it, but also we live in a post Mario movie world now, and Mario movie was an incredibly big success, but it's weird to say that it probably created new fans, as if there are still people who don't know or don't like Mario, which is wild, but there definitely are. I mean, Lucy mentioned it on the podcast that we did from the bed, Jan's room, hotel room.
The Jan's room cast.
Her nieces are now into it, and they weren't before. But like, this is a post Mario movie Mario game, and the Mario movie set different expectations now, because you're seeing Mario in a way that you never have before. Like, close up, you get to see him emoting, you get to see them having personalities, you get to see them speaking more than we have ever seen.
Yeah.
If you kind of create the new fan base with that movie who, you know, are now interested in playing games. And then the first game you release after that is the same kind of very pulled back, we can't see Mario's face, not emoting, Yoshi's not emoting. It's a very limited in terms of the personality. You're going to have a bit of an issue there with consistency, and you'd want to make the most of the kind of amazing performance of the movie. And the way you do that is by upping the game on how it's animating, how it shows the personality. And it does that in more ways than just like expressions. There's little flourishes here and there that make you feel like, oh, they have really thought about making every aspect of this charming in a way that kids and newcomers and people who have come from the movie will be like, this is my Mario.
Yep. And I think, I mean, take it. So like the game looks very promising because of all that. And we're feeling pretty good after playing it. And it's like, that's awesome for Mario. Is Nintendo applying this similar level of thinking about, hey, a long prototyping phase, something that, you know, when developers refer to this concept, they call it the process. And it's actually Mark Cerny's credited with coming up with this, of a very long prototyping phase. And then at least almost certainly at least the same amount of time later spent on actually defining the fun and polishing it up and stuff. And Nintendo's like, hey, yeah, well, that's working for us. Respawn is famous for this. They have really long prototyping phases.
It's the process that gave us Knack 1 and Knack 2.
That's
so
right.
Clearly, you can't say shit against it.
Clearly,
so.
It's unassailable. That's damn right. So, but you hope that, okay, so if we go back to that, looking at, we got a Zelda recently. We got we're getting a 2D Mario. We might be getting something from the 3D Mario team going into, and all that could happen before Switch 2 is here. Clearly, they will have either decent backward compatibility, upgrades, something to make all those games be there day one for a Switch 2 in some better form. That seems likely, but that's not exactly what we're thinking. We're like, okay, how do you have a strong launch with new games? Well, the truth is that they have some of these other teams doing the similar thing of taking a long time to get stuff ready, and they think that some of those games are going to be promising and a very strong way to launch a Switch 2. I guess we'll see. Here's
the thing. I think it's more likely that we get an F-Zero remake for Switch 2 than for Switch 1.
Yeah, I could. The one that's really curious to me, Tam, is Metroid Prime 4. Everyone is just kind of defaulting to this idea that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a Switch 2 game now. And I still think they try to get it out on the system, which means we would have to come out soon.
In the next year.
Yes, in the next year.
Yeah, I mean, given the development reset thing that they did fairly recently, that could be weird.
That might feel recently, Tam, but I think that's like been 4 years now.
Has that been 4 years?
It's been like 4 years, cool. Which it just feels recently because they have not said shit since. It's been completely silent. So
I mean, that's the Nintendo game I want the most. Like, when it comes to Nintendo franchises, I'm a Metroid boy.
Oh, I love to hear that.
I love Zelda and I love Mario, but 1,000,000% I'm a Metroid guy. And like that's the one I'm desperate for more information on. Well, but yeah, also like just to plug it again, I will have my Mario interview next week.
I was going to ask. Fantastic.
I wanted to have it up this week, but it's been so busy.
It's been a busy week.
I also asked them like why they took out the interactions between players, so picking up each other and being menaces and that kind of stuff, and it's gotten a really interesting but very obvious kind of like answer to it. Probably not the one that you expect, but I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it was funny because when they were answering it, they could also tell that I was the person causing problems in these games. They were like,
they immediately called you out. They recognized you.
Was just like,
sorry, your
like
cat jumped on the couch and I got very excited and had to show everybody. That's a good kitty. Hello, kitty.
Aww.
All right, you know what? Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about Phil Spencer, talk about Elder Scrolls 6 exclusivity and more. We'll be right back after this. And we're back. We're talking about more gaming news here on DREGSDAY on Game Mess Mornings. Xbox boss Phil Spencer addresses potential Elder Scrolls 6 exclusivity. This comes from Tom the Machine Ivan as well over at VGC. Microsoft's head of gaming has addressed the subject of whether the Elder Scrolls 6 will be an Xbox exclusive. Following this week's release of Starfield, Bethesda Game Studios' next game will be a new entry in the long-running fantasy RPG series. Starfield is available for Xbox Series X and S, PC via Windows and Steam, and Microsoft's Game Pass subscription service, which lets players play titles, blah, blah, blah. It's Bethesda Game Studios' first release since Microsoft acquired its parent company, ZeniMax Media, in 2021. Notably, Starfield is not available on PlayStation consoles, which it will also be the case for an upcoming Indiana Jones game set to be published by Bethesda Softworks. In an interview with Bloomberg this week, Xbox boss Phil Spencer was asked whether Elder Scrolls 6 will also be exclusive and how Microsoft decides whether it's on the right track with this release strategy. We look at it on a case-by-case basis with the games that we build, he replied. We want to make sure our games are available in so many different places, on our Xbox consoles, on PC, also via the cloud. These games can come to almost any web-enabled device. We're looking at millions and millions of players who will have access to Starfield and other Xbox Game Studios games. It's really about giving players choice around how they want to play and they build their where they build their library of games. Tam, I think that I'll just reiterate that I saw the documents the internal documents of how they decided what they were going to do with Bethesda exclusivity. And basically what it looked like is they did the math and they saw, yes, we will lose money when we don't put these games on PlayStation. But when we look at it, it's like that amount of money we're losing makes sense in terms of how it will feel like an investment into Game Pass and make Game Pass seem more valuable. So they're considering the cost of doing business, and they decided pretty firmly at that time, and at that time was a couple years ago now, but at that time they decided pretty firmly Bethesda games for the most part going forward are going to be exclusive, especially stuff like Elder Scrolls 6, which I heard specifically was going to be exclusive. Now, maybe that changes. Things can always change. And especially after going through that gauntlet with regulators, and maybe want to keeping things maybe more on the level with regulators, but oh yeah, you know what, we are going to actually consider things on a case-by-case basis. So that could change. But mostly I expect Elder Scrolls 6 to be exactly like Starfield and exactly like Indiana Jones. And Indiana Jones is maybe the key thing there, because that game was going to come to PlayStation even after Microsoft acquired ZeniMax, but Microsoft made a deal to actually, no, we're going to pay you a little bit extra, or we're going to put some stuff on top to actually see if we can keep it on Xbox only. And they were able to make that happen. Like, why go through all that effort if that's not your main strategy going forward? So what do you think here?
I mean, it's pretty much exactly what you said. I don't think I have much to add to it. It makes perfect sense. I mean, I feel conflicted because the logical part of my brain is like, yep, I'm unsurprised that they would do that. But the other part of it is also like, I think it really does suck that there's going to be a whole bunch of people who have been playing Elder Scrolls games on platforms that they have continued to own or new versions of, and they won't be able to access it. But again, like I said, they own that shit. Do what you want. I don't care. Like, I own every console, so I'm much too. People won't kind of believe that online given the last few weeks. But like, I love my Xbox. I love my PC. I love my PlayStation. I love my Nintendo consoles. So as it's coming out on one of those consoles, so I'm happy. I'm good. But yeah, I do wonder. I wish there was more transparency in the impact that Game Pass has had on games, especially new ones. Like, what is the kind of translation there? Is it translating? What is the release of Starfield doing to the kind of membership levels and numbers of Game Pass? And I don't know. Like, at a certain point, I'm like, oh, is there going to be a certain point where they look at it and they have released enough major games as exclusives, and then reassess whether that strategy is working? Because if let's say they put out Starfield and it does nothing for them in terms of like long-term gain for Game Pass. Yeah. And then
they haven't had a game like Starfield to like test it against, but we're here now. Exactly. And it's like they probably do have expectations of, hey, if this meets a certain level, then it's working. What is the strategy shift if it doesn't meet that level? I mean,
exactly.
Who knows?
I feel like, do they make that call after a game like Starfield, or do they? I assume you want more data points. Like, they've had mid-tier games coming in and out. Like, I imagine, like, after you've done Starfield, Forza, maybe even Elder Scrolls, but Elder Scrolls is really far away. I don't think you wait that long to make a
I might be closer to 50 than 40 when that game comes out, and that's deeply upsetting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, between Forza and Starfield, I think that's 2 data points. You probably need a few more than that, but I just don't know what else they have coming out in the near future that they could use to work in that.
What has the appeal of Starfield?
Very few games.
Yes,
Yeah.
even like from anybody.
I don't think it's likely, but I do think there is a very small outside chance that the policy is reassessed by the time we get to Elder Scrolls.
Yes, agreed.
If a bunch of games leading up to there don't hit, and someone says we are keeping these games off of other platforms that will guarantee us X amount of revenue when they're sold, in the hopes that we get it on through this other service, and that service isn't hitting with 4 games now, top tier games, I think it's time to reassess. And I think that's probably when they do. And if it happens, I imagine we'll get a kind of catch up where it's like, oh, Elder Scrolls is coming to PlayStation. Also, we're going to put out Starfield, a version of Starfield. We'll put out a version of whatever game it is. Not Forza, obviously, because Forza's locked.
Yeah, but, you got to imagine that. Well, first of all, like, Phil Spencer's in charge right now. I think he's fully behind the strategy that he's on, but he's been doing that job for a while now. He's been doing that job longer than I think almost anyone has done that job before him. And not just at like Microsoft. Most of these companies tend to not have leaders that last this long. So by the time Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, he probably will still be there. But there's no guarantee.
Probably still be
there's no guarantee he will. And so you could imagine a world where someone else comes in and they're like, well, and my gut tells me 1 to 2 years of exclusivity is good enough, and then we could put it somewhere else. So it's like, who knows? Things could change fast.
Yeah. And like, I trust Phil to do the right thing. I mean, end of the day, he's an executive who works for a company, and there are various pressures beyond that, beyond just like he seems like a good dude. And I've spoken to him enough times to know that he does really care about video games, and he also really cares about Xbox. So I trust him to do the right thing eventually, or do the smartest thing for the Xbox business, and also to some degree the broader gaming ecosystem. And I think like if it came to a point where it was like we gotta hold our hands up and say that it's not working, and for the greater good, as they say in Hot Fuzz, to make some changes, I think they'll do it.
Yep. I'll say, like, based like, you're right. We have no idea how they're measuring success. Not really. We talked about it. They say it's successful, Game Pass in general and stuff like that. But
that's my most wanted Xbox product.
Yes.
I don't want a new Fable. I don't want a new Perfect Dark. I don't want a new Killer Instinct. I want transparency on Game Pass metrics. That's what I want.
And it's like, we can. Even if if it's successful right now, we know that these companies, it's about growth. It's like, is it growing fast enough? And we hear it's growing very fast on PC. But that's easier because there's not as many subscribers on PC, so that makes sense. But we don't know. But if we look at like what evidence we do have before us, I think it's pretty safe to say Game Pass isn't hurting Microsoft in any fundamental way, even when it comes to selling games. Just like looking at Forza Horizon 5. That game had like something like 1 million concurrent, or not 1 million concurrent, they had like a million people buy it on Steam and Xbox before it hit Game Pass. So it's like that was the more expensive version. And it seems like Starfield did even better than that, like significantly better than that. So people are like still buying these games that they can get in Game Pass, and they're paying a premium on top of that to play a week early. So if they're still selling plenty of games, and Game Pass is getting like this sort of different angle at a different kind of player that's like, I'm not sure about buying so many games. Subscription makes more sense to me. It's like this two-pronged attack does seem like it's working based on what we could just view out in front of us, but it's like we just don't know if it's growing fast enough for them to be happy with it internally, and that's something eventually they might tell us, but who knows. All right, Jean-Claude Van Damme guest stars in Mortal Kombat 1 and makes a Street Fighter reference. This is from Jason Finelli at GameSpot. Back when Mortal Kombat 1's premium editions were first announced, NetherRealm Studios revealed that the action movie star Jean-Claude Van Damme would appear in the game as a skin for Johnny Cage. Today, a new trailer showcased how the real-life movie star portrays the fictional one, and it's a match made in Hollywood. Those who played as Johnny Cage in the recent pre-order beta test will recognize the moves on display here, as the Van Damme skin fights exactly like the normal character. There may be a few cheeky extra lines, though, as at one point, Johnny Van Damme tells Garrus, "I'll play Bloodsport, you play Street Fighter," a reference to two of Van Damme's films. Van Damme dons his look and attire from the aforementioned Bloodsport, which holds significance in the history of Mortal Kombat. In the early 90s, the game was originally pitched as a video game version of the 1988 film. I love Bloodsport, Tam. I love Jean-Claude Van Damme. I'm very excited about this. And it's like one of my I like the thing where I go on TikTok and then I stumble on the hey, fun intros to fights from Mortal Kombat and Injustice. Like, here's what this character says to this character, and here's this character flirting with all the other characters, and it's cheesy and hokey, and it's fun, and I like it a lot. So
I love that.
Getting Jean-Claude Van Damme in on that action, sign me up. I'm ready to do it.
My favorite is when I love that bit where they come into clash and one of them's like, I'm gonna kick your ass, and then the other one's like, I wish you'd eat my ass. And then it's like, oh yeah, Mortal Kombat is back, baby.
Mortal Kombat! Between them cheeks. Yes, I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I don't know how they got away with a Street Fighter reference. Fair enough.
Yeah, right. That's wild. Yeah.
I mean, they're not licensing that. I imagine they're talking. If they have any beef, who distributed the Street Fighter movie? If it is Warner Brothers, that would be it.
Universal? I want to say Universal, but I don't know.
I'm having I forgot there's multiple Street Fighter movies now. It was Universal, yeah.
Okay.
So I guess they would have Columbia TriStar internationally. So I guess they would be speaking to the movie licenses more than anything. But
maybe you say lowercase SF, like so you play but like a Street Fighter.
I feel like what happens is, like, if you were a low to mid tier product that you're, putting out there as make a cheeky reference, people would turn a blind eye. But when you're making literally millions and millions of dollars off your video game, that's when someone goes, that seems like it's worth chasing.
Yes.
We might get some piece of that pie.
I think these days the fighting game scene is just like, it's not worth fighting with each other. We all have our niche, or the ones that are left have our niche, and we should just be happy, not like send cease and desist when another game is having fun, even if it's at our expense.
It could be laying the groundwork for finally that Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter.
Oh yeah, any minute now.
We've been hoping for ages. This is it. This is how it starts. Jean-Claude Van Damme becomes like the Nick Fury of that universe, and he like travels into different games and is like setting up his own tournament. Bring Street Fighter characters, bring Mortal Kombat characters. Boom.
Let's go. Street Fighter X Mortal Kombat. That'll happen any minute. Right after which one that never came out? Street Fighter Cross Tekken.
Tekken Cross Street Fighter.
Tekken Cross Street Fighter.
Cross, yeah.
Yes, that's right. All right. Twitch sensation Only Up has been removed from Steam, so dev can find quote peace of mind and healing. This is from Ethan Gotch at Kotaku. Only Up is a brutal, janky platformer that blew up on Steam earlier this summer after becoming a hit with Twitch viewers. A number of controversies later, its creators has removed the... Hey, kiddo, can you turn down the volume on the TV for me real quick? Thank you. Its creators has removed the game from Valve's digital store seemingly forever, saying that they made a lot of mistakes and need time to heal before making their next game. The game has kept me under a lot of stress all these months. The game's developer, indie solo dev, wrote in what appears to be the final update for Only Up. Now I want to put the game behind me. And yes, the game won't be available in the Steam store soon. That's what I decided myself. It's pretty similar to what happened with the Flappy Bird, right? Where the developer's like, oh, it blew up and now it's too stressful and I want it to go away.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking. I guess it is something that when you're a one person or very small development team, you don't expect. But I feel like this is what people want most out of their game, right? Like people hope and pray that this happens to them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's like I get it to a certain extent. You know what? From the outside, I'm sure it's always like, hey, that just seems like a lot of money. Well, you keep the train rolling, keep making more. But maybe it's enough money, and at a certain point,
I also think it does genuinely become extremely stressful because like now there are expectations from this audience that you never expected would reach this level. Like now you've got random major streamers who play this game, like a fucking I don't know, like who's number one streamer in the world, or whatever. Like Distortion, for example, he's not number one streamer, but I've seen him do Only Up streams. Like that whole community is now like, this sucks. I wish it was like this. And then you've got that community on your ass, and you're like, I just made a dumb game, please.
Yep.
And like now you're committed to supporting the game, and then you have to consider, I can't do this alone. Do I need to scale up to bring people on? And some people are just going to be like, I don't have it in me to run a business and a team. And the only way I can avoid doing that now is just by abandoning this game and telling people, I'm doing nothing with this. This is it. Leave me alone.
Yep, exactly. You
It
could
feels
cut
like-
a clean
yeah.
break. I think that if if you're on Steam and you bought the game, you're going to be able to get access and stuff going forward, I believe. And then there will be lots of replacements. There are already a ton of clones. There's like only up like multiplayer clones and stuff like that. And that happened with Flappy Bird as well. But I like these kinds of games, Tam. I like the janky weird games that come that. People always like. I remember at the time, like with Flappy Birds. I remember Jason Schreier was like, "Hey, this uses like this is a cop like just ripping off Mario art." And then later he's like, "You know what? I don't care. I apologize for even bringing that up. Who cares? It's like not that big of a deal." And that's how I feel about this with this stuff, where it's like, apparently you use like Final Fantasy stuff. I don't care. That's Square Enix's problem. I ain't a cop for them. So like to me, that's kind of like, oh, this feels strapped together in a way that is very bootstrap and. Maybe cheap, but I just something about it feels punk rock, and I'm into it, and I like it. So I'm glad that it burned bright, and maybe it can't burn for so long. But I will continue to play this game occasionally because I really like it. Atari doubles down on retro, buys beloved Atari homebrew maker. This comes from Benji Edwards at Ars Technica. On Thursday, Atari announced that it will acquire Atari Age, a popular online community for Atari enthusiasts for over 2 decades. Atari Age is best known for selling Atari 2600, 5200, and 7800 console homebrews in high-quality cartridge form.
Excuse me, I think they're known for selling a baseball cap that had speakers in it. So...
Okay, that's Atari itself. That's the proper Atari that is definitely known for the speaker hat. Where's my speaker hat?
Put some
right
respect on Atari's name.
That's right. Well, now the bringing the two together and Atari Age will be under the actual Atari itself. Atari's founder, let me see if I have the name here. Yaruso, I don't have his full name here, but Yaruso, Albert Yaruso. There we go. He will still be. He's going to be working at Atari now, overseeing Atari Age going forward. And it seems like the idea here is Atari, yes, really doubling down on nostalgia, like Benj Edwards says here, where it's hey, we could take all these IPs and officially put them in really nice cartridges, something that Atari Age has gotten very good at, and package that stuff up and put them in collector's editions.
And you know who's going to be interested in it? People who are fucking dead.
Yes.
That's who. People who are in graves right now are going to reanimate and go, I love that game. I'm going to buy that. Give it up.
Do you have any nostalgia for that, Eric? Like, I talk to kids these days and they're like, I don't even really care about NES games for the most part.
No one fucking cares, man.
Yes,
no one cares. Like, I had my phase where I played all the video games that were important before I was alive. I did my research. I had a academic interest in video games. People don't give a shit, man. They don't care about these old ass games. Like, the best you're going to be able to do is, like, you'll get a few people who are like, for preservation's sake, will try and, if you do a good job of it, they'll buy it. But like, put out the Atari app on an iPhone, stick all your games in there, charge $5 for it, and get on with your life. That's it.
For me, the Atari 50 was the ideal way to experience that stuff. I want the history lesson. I want the stories of, hey, we got really high and then made some bullshit and then people liked it and that's weird. Or we were driving down the highway and we saw one of our old arcade machines and then we saw it, like, we went and looked at it and turns out it was one of the original like 6 machines ever made. And isn't that wild? I'm like, yes, that's crazy. Tell me more stories like this. But they've done Atari 50 now, and I don't know if I need another one. It was
amazing.
Atari.
It was incredible.
It's awesome.
Like, I thought it was fantastic.
I'm playing the hell out of the making of Karateka.
Karateka, yeah.
Yes, although apparently Jordan Mechner says Karateka. I said Karateka the first time I was talking about this. Everyone pronounces it differently. But that is, oh God, that's so good. That's such a good time. Just having these stories told to you and then playing the game. And we've got to change the battery pack on Tam's thing. We lost your camera, Tam.
No.
Wait, it's okay. No. We still got you. We'll wrap it up anyhow here pretty soon. Let's hit these last couple of stories. GameStop's financial numbers.
The weirdest part of it is I don't have.
Oh no, Jan had a similar issue recently, so that's always scary. You're back. Yeah. There we go. We got beautiful Tam's face. GameStop's financial numbers are improving. This is from Eddie McCoo at GameSpot. Video game retailer GameStop has released its latest earnings report, and the company's fortunes are improving. The company's total net sales reached $1.164 billion for the quarter that ended on July 29th, up from $1.136 billion during the same quarter last year. GameStop posted an overall net loss of $2.9 million for the quarter. However, the net loss of $2.9 million was a significant improvement over the $109 million loss from last year. At the end of the quarter, GameStop had $1.195 billion in cash equivalents, and securities on hand. Blah blah blah. It seems like they are maybe the cutting costs is working for them. This has got to be a company that just finds a level where, hey, maybe we can eke out a profit every couple of quarters or something like that, and that's what keeps us floating. There's no world where there's some where GameStop takes over again, right?
I don't think so. I mean, didn't they have that executive come out and go, I think all consoles should have disk drives in them?
Yes, that was a story earlier this week.
That was basically Dinosaur says comets suck and should not come to
I think
town.
comets should be outlawed. Oh, okay, Mr. T-Rex.
If you're a comet, don't come anywhere near our planet. I think that they should stay away from us.
We should make a law.
Yeah.
Yes, GameStop obviously still sees their future as selling mostly physical games and used games, and that's going to be a ever dwindling market. But I don't think it's never gonna go completely away. So if they can find some sort of equilibrium here, maybe they can justify themselves going forward. But these companies, they need that growth. So I don't know how that makes sense.
They need that growth. I would suggest GameStop tries experiment with better business practices.
Yeah, I don't think that's an option for them. That's just, they don't know how to do that.
Give that a go. Maybe earn some goodwill from gamers instead of giving them $1 for the game that they bought yesterday and kicking them out on their ass, that kind of shit.
Instead of that, how about more Funko Pops?
Oh yeah, I love. You know what you should do? You should start making Funko Pops of GameStop executives.
Oh, there you go.
I think everyone will be super into that.
I'd be down with that. Last couple of things here I'm just going to mention as then we'll get out of here. The Last of Us Season 2 is cast Abby. They haven't said who yet, but everyone thinks it's going to be Sharon Berry, I think is her name, or Shannon Berry, excuse me. There we go. And she's from The Wilds and Hunters. People can look up a picture of her. I think she'll make a fine Abby. Are you worried about the? You were a fan of the show, right? Have you watched that show? I haven't watched it yet.
I think that show is. I thought it was fantastic.
Right, that's what I thought. I remember. So, are you worried about the casting of Abby? Like, do you feel like that's something that's going to be difficult for them to get right?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not one of those people that goes to the internet and is like, I cannot believe they cast this person in this role. I'm just like, all right, man. No amount of complaining is gonna change it for me or whatever. So just like, I hope the acting is good, and I hope that they do good casting in that. See, the problem is everyone who complains about casting complains from a purely physical level to begin with. Like,
exactly.
They look at this person, they're like, I don't like the way they look.
Yep.
They don't look the way. Like, I don't give a shit about that. Like, if that person looks like completely different, but when you go in there, they got the vibe of Abby and they're acting their ass off, like, fantastic. Good for you. I don't really care. But if you get in there and it's like, oh, this person isn't hitting, that's a different that's a casting issue I can get behind. Where it's like, this person just didn't put in the work and like isn't performing well and isn't embodying that role well. But I don't care what they look like. Whatever,
yeah. I learned my lesson there with Chris Evans for Captain America. I remember being like, well, that's just a bad choice. That'll never work. And I was very wrong. He was great.
A good example is the One Piece live action. Like, I'm watching it. Everyone looks great. None of them can act. I'm just like, all right, cool.
Tim, why would you do that to yourself? Why are you watching that?
I don't know. I love One Piece. I feel like I'm softening on it a little more.
Okay, that's good. That's something.
I think I'm accepting it for what it is now.
Sure.
Like, I find it very awkward to watch. And I feel like, I'm like, oh God, I hope this isn't what people think One Piece is, because it very much isn't. But I feel like it has the spirit. It's got the spirit. I don't enjoy it much. I think that the lad who plays Luffy is great, but it's just weird seeing that kind of level of earnestness come out of a human being instead of like a very
an icon,
exaggeratedly animated group of characters, and it's just this is the Garp. It looks very weird. He's a northern dude with a dog hat, and I'm just like, how you doing this, man? It's better than Dragon Ball. It's better than Cowboy Bebop. It's very watchable. I think it's because my background with it. I'm one of those weird anime people that's like, this is not what I wanted.
Tim, I just you mentioned the North, and it reminded me. I played that. Thank you so much for coming, or whatever it is. That really cartoon-looking game that was at a showcase. Did you end up playing that at PAX? I think didn't you?
No, I downloaded it, but I need to play it more.
Okay, because apparently it's got a lot of references that they said people from the north of England will get, and I'm like,
oh wait, no, the British one. Yeah, I did play that. Yes. Sorry.
Did you notice any of that? Because I mean,
yeah, it's the most British game that me and Lucy were like laughing our asses off.
That's exactly what I was wondering.
It is, yeah. I think it's called Thank God You're Here.
Yeah, thank goodness you're here. Thank goodness you're here.
Thank goodness you're here. But like, it opens with someone going, what's going on over here? What's all this then? And it's like pure, just ridiculous. It's like British like sensibilities kind of mixed with a little bit of WarioWare, if you know what I mean, where it's like you're just going around doing things for people and increasingly weird mini games, and it's just very funny.
Yep, I really enjoyed my time with that. Final story: Cup Noodles is now making food for gamers. They always have.
Thank you and good night.
Yes, thank you and good night. I don't know. There's a CNN report.
You are right, though. They always have been. Yes, I don't understand.
Yes,
like what are they doing different now?
Official food. Come on, what's going on here? All right, I got a poll from yesterday. We're gonna get to that in a second, but before that, Tam, what do you got going on? You got anything you want to plug? Anything you want to tell people about?
There should be a new episode of Spot On going up today, and me and Lucy were chatting about. There's a lot of games. Is there such thing as too many games? Like, what is the impact of having all these games crammed in together? And we're probably gonna get some shit for it, but we're just trying to say, like, it's kind of weird, right? Like, do we get to really enjoy these games if we're constantly moving from one thing to another? It is weird and a consideration that we should have. But yeah, that'll be up. GameSpot After Dark podcast will be up today. There's going to be UPF for the crew here at GB. I think that is still happening, right? Is it going to happen?
I'm sorry. What was that? I was getting the poll set up. What was the question?
UPF.
Yes,
UPF, is it still happening?
Dead by Friday, Dead Daylight, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That is cool. Looking forward to that.
That's happening.
I went through the tutorial and everything. I think we can get custom games going. So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna say there's a good chance we might all be Nick Cage. We might be all Nick Cages trying to survive. Yes. So
beyond that, there's a bunch of videos up on the site now that from our trip to PAX with Voicemail Dump Truck is up. I think Jan is furiously working on the travel log. It is a big beefy thing.
Yeah, there's multiple travel logs too.
We started recording from the point we left to go, which was pre a 28-hour train journey, and we recorded pretty much every day up until that point. So it's a lot of footage to go through. So please do give Jan a little bit of time to scrape through that and put it all together. The PAX panel we did with Jenna is up, and yeah, there's a whole load of content out there to check out, but that's pretty much it.
UPF today is at 1 p.m. Eastern time, 10 a.m. Pacific. Yes, it's the earlier time that we've been doing recently is when we're doing. So in about an hour from now is when we'll be making that happen. Okay, the poll from yesterday. Do you really think E3 comes back in 2025? 92% of you very skeptical and say no. 8% say yes. Tam, I am with the nose on this one.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I think it comes back in like 5 years from someone else who bought the naming rights to E3.
Every time someone says, will E3 come back, I see that picture of Principal Skinner saying pathetic, but it's Jeff Keighley.
Exactly. Okay, let's see here. And then I got a new poll that we're going to put up right now. Have you ever played F-Zero GX? Yes or no? I just want to know. I just want you to tell me it's okay. It's safe here. Tell me the truth. It's okay if it's a no. But hey, man, maybe you'll get lucky and get a chance to play it on your Switch real soon. That would be very nice. Who knows?
Nice.
All right. Tam, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Sadly, I won't be here next week because I will be traveling.
Yep. You got a busy week next week.
I'll be back after that week.
Yep. Cool. Looking forward to it. We'll get someone else in here next Friday, everybody. For DREGSDAY. I'm looking forward to that here on giantbomb.com.
I nominate Blessing Adeoye Jr. See if you can get him in.
We'll get Blessing in. That sounds fantastic. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself. And goodbye. Fade to black. We're good.